This is Benny Johnson. Well, we all know Benny, but next to him is Congressional Representative Brandon Gill. He's now asking the questions that all of our representatives should have been asking and should have been putting a stop to the actions for decades, but specifically over the last 5 to 6 years. He's making a statement that America is not a welfare program for the entire world. So I want to take a path down here and show you that how each sanctuary city is affecting you, whether or not you're living in a sanctuary city. So here we have an example of a gift card scam. This was Lawrence County. This is an individual who is 20 years old, caught stole and tampered with, it happens to be Apple gift cards, redirected balances to themselves, arrested with 126 gift cards in his jacket, pleaded guilty to organized crime. So if you're not familiar with this scam, individuals will walk into any location that has gift cards hanging on a rack. They will take those gift cards. They will be able to scan often without even scratching off any information. So there's no visible mark that they've been tampered with. They'll scan the data and they will put them back. Then, as soon as somebody like you or I decides we want to get a gift card for a loved one or a friend, then we go and we grab a gift card, we go up to the cashier and we put money on it. Before we even walk out of the store, these thieves have been notified that money is now on the card. They pull the money off, and by the time you get from the cashier to your car, the card is worthless. The money's gone. So this is affecting a lot of people. But what's interesting is this particular individual, which I don't know his name, so I don't know if this was the same individual, but it's the same type of crime. He was caught in another state and he was part of a group that ran this $1 million gift card scam. The thing is, right here, he's pulling out of his wallet his ID that the sheriff asked for. And although when the gentleman speaks, there's closed caption. When the officer speaks, there isn't. I was going to have that on the screen, but you can see this under the crime piece. Chinese group deported after $1 million gift card scam at 1 minute, 1 second. He then hands the ID card to the officer, and the officer responds, "Oh, you're from California." This is really important because California is screwing over the rest of the world. So if you go to USCIS services in San Jose, California, Santa Clara, you can't get in if you're an American. You must have an appointment. And in fact, you can only get an appointment if you're a foreigner. So as I went over there to ask questions, I was threatened with arrest. I offered to sit outside and wait for anybody in the building to come talk to me. And they finally brought two individuals down who were very large with weapons, telling me to get off the property. So this is United States Customs and Immigration Services. And if we read from the comments here, for me, I just needed to bring a driver's license, the appointment letter, and a permanent resident card and passports. They got in. Side note, if you need to reschedule your interview, citizenship interview, in my case, call the number and you get a new interview set up. How about found out last night that my green card expires next week, but I have a trip to Switzerland at the end of the month. All these individuals are getting service, yet I can't make an appointment and I can't get in the door. Now, what is interesting is during during COVID, I lost my driver's license. There was only one location I could go to, and it was this location in San Jose over on, oh, I'm sorry, they've now, the address is Sacramento here, but it's this location, the San Jose Drivers Processing Center. And I went in there, I could not find anybody that spoke English. And when I say anybody, I don't mean just the other people sitting in the chairs with me waiting. I mean, even the people that work there. Finally, I got a supervisor to come out and answer my questions, who I had to speak to in Spanish. But what I noted while I was sitting there, this was not a DMV license processing center by any means. This San Jose location was committing fraud. Everybody in there, with the exception, as far as I could tell, me, were getting California IDs, not necessarily driver's license, and none of them spoke English. They were being processed. They'd come into this country during the darkness of COVID and were going to this location, like I'm sure many others, and being given California IDs, much like the gentleman in this video provided to an officer in yet another state. So this location, as I saw many people arguing, and I would kind of stand close to over here, they didn't want just a California ID because it stopped them from working. It wasn't a work permit. They wanted to pay cash, bribe, for additional card or notice saying that they could work here as well. I'm sure that this location closed because of mass fraud. But, they always give some other example. Meanwhile, this is what DMV is doing, and they'll now do it offline. You can mail in for your ID if you don't want to go to a location. Probably mail in from any country. Now, what is interesting is California is caught up in a number of these scams that are severely hurting other individuals. In fact, California was ordered to let immigrant truck drivers keep their licenses. This was in 2026. Facing pressure from the Trump administration, California tried to revoke more than 20,000 trucking licenses. However, they were ordered to give them back. In March of 2026, federal government ordered California DMV to cancel these licenses. And 4 days ago, immigrant truck drivers were supposed to get their licenses. Let's click on this one here. Back while California DMV is stalling. So we're going back and forth. And this is Cal Matters if you watch this. Thousands of immigrant California truck drivers are here illegally, and they're in a legal limbo. After the Trump administration ordered the state to revoke their licenses earlier this year, many are now out of work and unable to support their families. So they're now on welfare. But there are rules regarding trucking that crosses multiple states. All of this doesn't seem to matter to California, that under Newsom takes his own policies and shoves it down the throat of everybody else on the planet. Multiple lawsuits seek to restore the commercial driving licenses because somehow that's not fair, otherwise known as trucking licenses. But so far, none of the cases have succeeded in keeping those drivers on the road. And we've seen many, many accidents not published in California, but in other states of those who've got their licenses from California. Now, what's interesting is Department of Homeland Security threatens to remove customs officers at Sanctuary City Airport. So what does this mean? Department of Homeland Security, this individual, Mullen, suggested removing U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers from airports and sanctuary cities, prompting criticisms from California. Once again, who's standing up and saying that's not fair? Well, why did they want to do this? The Democrats would not approve funding for Homeland Security, Border Patrol, or ICE agents. But we needed to fund TSA so that people can move through the airports. So Trump suggested he would allow ICE agents to go to the airports to relieve the TSA that were not getting paid, because the ICE agents had a special cutout under the big, beautiful bill. He thought ahead. But what's very interesting and disgusting is the sanctuary cities continued to put up fake news about ICE agents attacking people. We saw the video in San Francisco of the woman on the ground being, quote unquote, attacked by ICE agents. The story is quite different than what clips we saw on the news. But as we move forward, Mark Wayne is suggesting that, okay, fine. If you're a sanctuary city, you're breaking the law, you're hiding illegals, then we can no longer trust you to have international flights in and out of your city. because you're breaking the law. You're hiding the people who don't have a right to be here. Therefore, anybody flying out will not be able to fly out from California if there's any kind of international issue, but more importantly, flying in. So if you cannot have an international flight flying in to your sanctuary city is the proposal. Instead, they'd have to touch down in another city or state within the United States, which isn't unheard of. There's hubs for international flights. Once you're cleared there, then you can go ahead and go to your final destination. I haven't heard any more of this. This was just proposed last week. As we move forward through this comment, Department of Homeland Security states that more than 10,000 illegal aliens were arrested in Sanctuary Los Angeles since Department of Homeland Security launched its operations in June, and that would have been in 2025. Some of the worst arrested in Los Angeles include murderers, kidnappers, sexual predators, and armed carjackers. The United States Department of Homeland Security announced today U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Immigration Customs Enforcement more than 10,000 arrests of illegal aliens, including these categories in Los Angeles and California. 10,000. This goes back to Trump's comment that they're not sending their best, they're sending the worst of the worst. These individuals don't just commit one crime, they commit multiple crimes. And they're affecting all of us. Whether they're not affecting you or your family directly, maybe your insurance has gone up. Maybe Social Security is getting affected because they're claiming that. Maybe your car insurance went up. Maybe they're squatters. But, there's a lot of other crimes that get committed around this. Or, unfortunately, these categories are very serious as far as murders, kidnappers, and predators, and they're affecting our children. But California continues to not only hide the fact, but then they were forced. Let me see if this came up here. DHS urgently calls on Gavin Newsom and Sanctuary California not to release 33,179 illegal aliens from jails back into California communities. Now we're up from 10,000 to 33,000 in February of 2026. These sanctuary politicians not only endanger our communities, but also increasingly put our officers at risk. They will do anything to not go back into the jail if they're on the streets. They want to continue creating their crimes. They don't want to blend in the community. And they are forced to arrest criminal illegal aliens at large and face coordinated attacks of violence against them. And of course, these Karens, which is not a word that I like to use because that's a name of a lot of women in the United States, but the behavior that we're seeing translates into these absolute attacks on the street, protecting individuals that they don't even know, many of which fall under this number of the 33,179 that are now released and spread across the country. ICE has 33,179 active detainers for criminal aliens in California, local, state, and federal prisons across the state of California. They know that they're there. 4,561 criminal aliens have been had detainers not honored. Somehow, California's decided, we're not going to honor these. Well, you know what? Those individuals should be arrested. If you're a politician, if you're a sheriff, if you're in the situation where you allow somebody to be released back into the public because you don't feel like you want to follow the federal law, they should be arrested as well. This includes 31 homicides, 661 assaults, 574 burglaries, 184 robberies, 1,489 dangerous drug offenses, 379 weapons offenses, letting you know that an illegal immigrant does not have a right to have a weapon in this country. It is actually against the law, and 234 sexual predator offenses. And yet California seems to deem that these people are more important than you. In fact, there was a release earlier this year that let me see if this back to Swalwell, which was going, that Los Angeles finally released a list of individuals who'd been held in Los Angeles County that were illegals. And there was an absolute uproar. They were protecting these individuals who were criminals because it was a sanctuary city. And these individuals, once again, have more rights of protection than you do. So by being forced to release that list, there were tens of thousands of individuals who had been arrested, and the city and county had been covering up for them just so that they wouldn't get caught under a federal umbrella and be deported. Isn't that what we want in order to have a safe country? So here I have DIR. This is Department of Industrial Relations, specifically California, more commonly known for most of us, Department of Labor. This was June 9th, 2025. California Labor Commissioner reminds employers of legal rights and obligations under California laws. Well, you might think, okay, why is she bringing this up right here? The Labor Commissioner is reminding all employers that California labor laws protect every worker in the state, regardless of immigration status. All employers are legally obligated to comply with all state labor laws, including those that are immigration related. Workers who file wage claims, retaliation complaints, or exercise other rights under California labor law are not required to disclose their immigration status. How are they not required to disclose that? In order to hire somebody in this country, you need to file something, I believe it's called an I-9, which asks for multiple pieces of ID that proves a right to work in this country. The Labor Commissioner's Office does not ask about immigration status of any individual seeking assistance or protection under the California law. Workers are protected from unfair immigration-related practices. And I will say, no, they're not, including retaliation. This letter from our government, through our governor to DIR, is protecting the illegal individuals. It is not protecting people like you and I, and I'll go further into that in a moment if you haven't followed my other videos. Including retaliation. No, they're not. It is unlawful for an employer to retaliate against a worker for exercising any of these protections and for not complying with the notice requirements with respect to immigration enforcement at work sites. Violations of these laws may be subject to employer penalties of $10,000 per violation under California Labor Code. So they're punishing employers who ask the right questions. However, as I have stated, yeah, see, it is an I-9. However, as I have stated, California is encouraging illegals to work in the state and protecting them over locals. In fact, many of the tech companies have prioritized H-1B visa holders and green card holders over legals. They also have a number of individuals who don't have green cards and are working in the state and also prioritized over locals. So as I continued to go to the Department of Labor asking for assistance, I would stand in line and realize that nobody spoke English except for me. And nobody looked like me. So I would be friendly and talk to different people, and they would let me know that they're just there finishing up their case. Well, how has it been 4 years and my case still hasn't been assigned? So I got the senator involved, and they responded to the senator in writing under California Open Records Act request that California Department of Labor is prioritizing immigrants. Both legal and illegal, they fall under the same category. So even if an immigrant is here legally, that's great. They have a right to work. If they're here illegally, they don't have a right to work. All are being prioritized over people who were born here. So it further stated that because I, as the client or constituent of the senator, am not an immigrant, legal or illegal, I do not follow under that category. Therefore, I am not a priority. Therefore, I have waited almost 4 years, over 4 years, for my case to be heard. So they are being prioritized by giving licenses or at least IDs through California DMV. They're giving licenses to truck drivers. They're spreading out amongst the country and committing crimes. California, specifically Los Angeles, but they're just that news article, we're seeing it statewide, are hiding and protecting individuals who've created heinous crimes in this country. And then once they finally release them, they're in your backyard. So this is, Justice Department publishes a list of sanctuary jurisdictions. This was August 5th, a year ago. Washington, the Justice Department's published the list of states and cities and counties identified as having policies, laws, or regulations that impede enforcement and federal immigration. I don't get it. This was a year ago. They published this. We should have ICE in every single one of these states and cities. Just sit there and wait. As I drive down the freeway, you can identify a number of them because the cars either don't even have license plates or have a license plates with DMV tags that expired multiple years ago. The problem with that is if there's no current DMV tag, there's no insurance. And many of those, if you kind of follow one and pull off in a parking lot and they happen to get out, don't speak English. Not all of them, but the percentage that I have encountered is pretty darn close to 100%. So what we have here, and I'm just going to show it on the screen, not necessarily going to read them because you can read faster than I can talk, but here's the key cities that we're looking at. And any of these cities are cities that you do not want to send your kids to universities. And I see San Jose is not even on the list as an example. So we know of a lot more that aren't even on that list. Let me see what else is going on here. So anyways, this list is found at the justice.gov. Justice Department publishes list of sanctuary jurisdictions in case you want to grab that. And then final, the protection through sanctuary cities is a crime. Those who are stepping up and protecting the sanctuary culture is not protecting you. From business, we learn about opportunity costs. If you're protecting one group of individuals who are illegals and committing crimes, you are not protecting the group of individuals who are being attacked or are victims of those crimes. You can't do both at the same time. And yet these sanctuary cities claim from an altruistic perspective that they love everybody and everybody has equal rights under the law. Well, that's not what's happening, and we really need to be aware of that. So as we go back to the beginning here, once again, this is Benny Johnson that we've seen multiple times. But for those of you who are not in Texas, this is Representative Gill. And Gill, like many of the congressmen nationwide, are starting to ask questions and stating that America is not a welfare program for the world as they investigate not only sanctuary cities, not only truckers, but also the violation of the H-1B visa process, who has absolutely been abused through the process. All right, well, that's it for today. You have a wonderful day. Just stay aware. Let's see if we can stop this here.